Hey everybody, this is Drew, recording out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, doing a little baby moon with my wife, as she likes to call it. So it's our last day here. We go back to the cold, snowy weather tomorrow morning, so not really looking forward to that. But the trend that I looked into and studied this past week was the trend of sharing services. Um, And it's interesting because John the Baptist he wrote a little bit about this. Um, he said, "But if anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need, yet closes his heart against him, how does God's love abide in him?" And that's from 1 John 3:17. Um, so I wanted to see how that ties into this trend of shared services, if at all. Um, so there's a couple different names. I believe for this class it was labeled under peer-to-peer sharing services. But for sake of clarification, I'm going to use the term shared economy. Um, Now this covers companies such as Airbnb, Lyft, Uber, Turo, and a lot more. Um, and these companies exist they basically be a platform that a consumer in need of a ride or somewhere to stay, or if they want to borrow something, can simply log into an application and input when and where, and then they agree to a set price by the owner of that property, and then they're able to start utilizing that person's belongings. Um, so if we look at the world behind shared economy, um, it's estimated that over 24 billion in venture capital funding has been put into the shared economy since 2010, which is an enormous amount. Um, and then if we look at the very root of shared economy, excuse me, it is something that's been around since the Old Testament. Um, One of the examples that I thought of was during the Great Famine of Egypt in Genesis 47. Um, when people were giving livestock and money to Joseph in exchange for bread. Um, and if we look at what it is, it's essentially bartering. Um, and then the difference between what we see in the Old Testament and from now, it's all done online through a platform or database, while never completely owning whatever the consumer is purchasing. Um, and then we also have to look at that there's a third party involved, the actual platform, and they're used to connect the two people, the consumer and the seller, um, and they also govern kind of both sides. If there's an issue on the seller side, they would ban that person or whatever the reason is. Um, Now, if we look at like the earliest form of this, we would look at Pierre Amidar, um, and he's the guy that launched eBay in 1995. Um, so he kind of put the wheels going on the new form of digital economy that others could follow after. The exchange platform he created allowed his company to operate without the huge corporate infrastructure, meaning he didn't have to have a big building. He didn't have to have hundreds, maybe even thousands of people underneath him. Um, it was a pretty easy setup. Um, Now I'm sure that as it's expanded into a huge market, he's got tons of workers, but at the same time, I doubt that they have like a huge headquarters and everything else. It's a relatively easy startup. Um, Now, one of the articles that I came across, they wrote something that now we have a promise for a world where people govern, provide and exchange goods and services in ways that serve both buyers and sellers. It proves that people can maintain and balance the economic order of things in open and free marketplaces which they control. Ultimately, it has powered consumers. Um, so I think that definition right there kind of lays out um, how no longer there's companies kind of dictating prices and everything, where we could easily log on to one of these apps and barter with people, um, get prices cheaper or whatever the case is. And if we look at the world of shared economy, um, again, there's so many different avenues. A couple examples I gave was borrowing a drill for home improvements, or um, there's cars parking spaces, or borrowing an office space. The opportunities are truly endless for the things that you can borrow, and it's it's really surprising and interesting to see all the different things that you have access to. Um, and we also have to acknowledge that a lot of this is powered by smartphones. Our smartphones empower us to download in a simple app and log into something and have a car within minutes at our disposal, or be able to rent out a house with very little within 15 minutes or so. Um, so we have to realize that our cell phones, our smartphones, are a huge part of um, what keeps this economy and this trend going. Um, and if we look at what is also powering this economy, it's the transaction costs. Smartphones, internet connectivity, and the cloud allow consumers to efficiently search for their desired goods and services, understand the terms, ensure timely logistics, and enforce the agreed upon contract. Formerly frustrating transactions have become hassle-free. Um, Now, with many of these major companies that are pretty much pioneers, there's a lot of regulations they are coming across. Um, Many areas, cities, states, countries, they don't like the idea of them. For instance, for Uber, in France of last year, they were struggling with regulations um, because it was a startup that did not get government's approval first. So the government of France was basically saying that they are not just a digital company, a digital service, but they're a transport company, and they should be held as the same guidelines as taxi services. Um, Now, we also need to look at how people with products sitting idle are now enabled to allow others to use those items than rather just sitting on a shelf and losing its value. Um, if I have a power drill that I've bought for a project and it's just sitting going to waste, why wouldn't I rent it out and let it go to use and make money out of it? Um, and it also enables somebody that can't justify the spending for a tool or a vehicle or a bike to rent out for a certain time for a fraction of what it retails for. Um, a great example would be my wife and I went on the boardwalk the other day, um, and we wanted to take bikes because going to our destination, it would have taken at least 20 minutes just to walk to. Um, and to rent out bikes, it was a lot quicker. So we had the opportunity to either go to the store and buy bikes for $100 a piece that we would only use for about 10 minutes total, or we could rent out bikes on the boardwalk for a few dollars um, that we could use and then return, and then that's it. We're done with it. Um, so it made sense. The company, they make money out of it. They gain our money, and we get to keep our energy and save some time. So it's a fair trade-off, I think. Um, and I think it's also notable to talk about how easy these interactions have become. Um, Usually our credit card information is already saved on the app's database for that service. Um, for the bike rentals, there was a little kiosk that I just inserted my credit card, and we pulled our bikes out, and that was it. That's how it started. And then when we put them back in the system, it returned it, and then knew our bikes um, were returned and were able to charge us for the amount of time that we used them. Um, Now, if we look at the world in front of shared economy, um, without a doubt, one of the biggest users is the millennials. It's considered a fun and trendy thing to take part of for a couple different reasons. It's a new and unique experience for people. Um, and another big thing is they don't want to commit to buying high ticket items that, like I said, they can't justify spending the money for. Um, and it's interesting because the modern day people were begging for more companies to join in for the shared economy. We're looking for things to make life easier, cheaper, and greener, while providing a variety for us. Um, I listed a couple of companies or ideas. There's a company called Rent the Runway um, that they ship fashionable clothing that a woman can go on a website or an app and pick out, and she could have it shipped to her door if she's got a wedding or a big event coming up. And then once she's done, she just sends it right back. So it's a pretty easy setup, and without the big expense. Some of those dresses are $500-$600, and you might be able to rent it for $20 a day or something. And then we have companies like the one on the boardwalk where you could rent bikes or electric scooters, or you could rent umbrellas. And then, of course, there's the rideshare companies. And then the Airbnb kind of thing where you could rent out your house. All of these companies are making life easier and in some ways cheaper, so that customers don't need to buy those high-end tickets or high-end ticket items that they wouldn't use often. So as I mentioned before, the bike company and then us, we were both gaining something. The bike company is gaining a little bit more because first they're getting our cash and they get to keep the item. So they gain a little bit more, but at the same time it's a fair trade-off. I was willing to trade that off to save us some energy and time. And then a couple of the things that person renting the items out, they're trusting their borrower that they'll take care of those items as if it was their own and respect it. And then they're also temporarily giving ownership to that person while borrowing it. So there is some trust in there as well. Now, if you look at this trend from a theological sense, one piece of scripture that stood out to me was from Acts. And it says, "Now the full number of those who believed were of one heart and soul. And no one said that any of these things that belonged to him was his own, but they had everything in common. And with great power the apostles were giving their testimony to the resurrection of Lord Jesus. And great grace was upon them all. There was not a needy person among them, for as many as there were owners of lands or houses sold them and brought the proceeds of what was sold." So here we have a society that they were selling everything. Everything was shared, and nothing was kept from each other. Everybody kind of had ownership of all those possessions or all those things. So we have that, and a difference because sure, in this economy now they're sharing those things, but at the same time they're renting them out. They're making a profit off of them. So that's interesting. There's some kind of similarities, but there's also differences. And then I also looked at the aspect of people being able to evangelize in different ways. I gave the example of like an Uber driver that may encounter dozens of people within a day. You get to interact with people from all sorts of walks in life, and they're all in different seasons, and that might open the door to sharing the gospel, sharing their faith in a non-threatening way. And you're able to get to know somebody through that, just through conversation. And the same thing with homeowners. They could bless their guest while they're in their space. I think a lot of people, travelers, would want to be able to talk to the person that's hosting them, or uh, that's letting them rent their house. Um, and I think that opens the conversation of their personal life and what they believe in, and it just opens a trusting um, opportunity to share their faith. Um, so thanks for watching this. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and you were able to just see clearly how the trend of shared economy and the theology, and see the base of it.